Good morning, boys and girls. Today I'm dressed as Wonder Woman to help tell the story of two brothers. These brothers were twins, but they weren't identical twins. One of them, like I did earlier, enjoyed hunting with a bow and arrow. His name was Esau. Esau not only enjoyed hunting and making food out of the animals that he killed, but he was also known as being a very red and hairy man. So anytime I bring up this puppet with her red hair, that's going to help remind us of Esau. The other brother was named Jacob. Jacob was different from Esau. He preferred to stay at home and he had smooth skin. So we have Esau and Jacob. Now, in our story today, we're also going to hear about a trick. So this is the month of April. April 1st, a lot of you might already know, was April Fool's Day. So some of you might have planned some funny pranks or tricks. A trick is when you pretend like you're doing one thing, but you actually do another thing. So in today's story, we are going to hear about a trick. Now, sometimes tricks are funny, sometimes they're not so funny. And today's story is not a funny trick. So, the first thing, before we get into our story today from Genesis 37 and 38, that we're going to review are some of the lessons that we did before Easter. So our big picture question for the last couple of lessons has been, does God keep his promises? And the answer is, God always keeps his promises because he is faithful. So I have some pictures here to help remind us of the stories that we've already done. The first one is a picture of Abraham. Abraham is looking up at the stars because God has made a covenant with Abraham that his family would be as many as the stars in the sky. This was God's covenant promise. And he said that he was going to make Abraham's family a special family that would belong to God. After God made this promise to Abraham, he allowed Abraham and his wife Sarah to have a son, even though they were really old. So they had a son named Isaac. Well, Isaac grew up, and guess what? God made the same covenant promise to Isaac. God promised that he would be faithful to Isaac's family, that they were God's special people. In our story today, Isaac is old, and Isaac is the dad of Jacob and Esau. So remember these promises, and I'll tell you what this picture is in just a second. So let me read the story from Genesis chapter 37 and 38 to us. When Isaac was old and he could not see, he called for his older son, Esau. Esau was the firstborn son. As the firstborn, Esau was the one who would inherit the land. He would inherit money after Isaac died. So you can imagine that Esau had a lot to look forward to. Isaac said to his son Esau, go hunting and make a meal for me. You see, Isaac really liked the food that Esau cooked for him. And then Isaac told Esau, I want to bless you before I die. So Esau went out to hunt. Rebekah was Isaac's wife. Rebekah heard Esau and Isaac talking, and she made her own plan. Rebekah told her younger son, Jacob, remember he's the one with smooth skin and he likes to stay at home. So Rebekah told Jacob, I will make your father's favorite food. I have my pot here of food to remind me. I will make your father's favorite meal. Take the food to your father so that he may bless you before he dies. Jacob did what Rebekah said. Rebekah put Esau's clothes on Jacob, and she covered Jacob's hands and neck with goat hair. So I'm going to use this blanket, and it's going to kind of show us what Jacob would have looked like with all of this fake hair on him so that he would seem hairy just like his brother Esau. So Jacob was covered with this goat hair so that Isaac would think Jacob was Esau. Then Jacob took the meal to his father. "Who are you, my son?" Isaac asked. "I am Esau, your firstborn," Jacob said. Isaac asked Jacob to come closer. He felt Jacob's hands. So here we have Isaac, and there's Jacob. Notice the hair on his hands. This is what Isaac said. "The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau." Jacob brought his father food and drink, and he ate. After the meal, Isaac kissed him and offered him the blessing. Remember, the blessing included land, riches, and power. Then Jacob left. About this time, Esau came home from his hunt. He went in the room, and when he gave food to Isaac, his father told Esau that he had been tricked. Jacob had been given the blessing. Esau begged his father to bless him too, but Isaac had nothing left to give. Esau was angry, and he made a plan to kill Jacob. Isaac and Rebekah sent Jacob away to stay with relatives, and Isaac told him to find a wife. So you can imagine how Jacob is feeling now that he's been sent away from his family. On the way to go stay with his relatives, Jacob stopped to sleep. He put a stone, just my stone, he put a stone under his head as a pillow. Jacob had a dream of a stairway set on the ground with its top reaching the sky. Angels were going up and down the stairs. Then God spoke to Jacob. God said, "I am the God of your grandfather, Abraham." Remember this? I'm going to put this up so we can remember. So God reminded Jacob that he's the God of his grandfather, Abraham, his father, Isaac. And he said to Jacob, "I will give you and your offspring, your children, this land." God gave Jacob the same covenant promise that he had made to Abraham and to Isaac. And these stars are to remind us, because remember, God had said to Abraham, "Your children will be as many as the stars in the sky. You won't be able to count them. There'll be so many." God told Jacob that his family would be like the dust of the earth. They would spread out in all directions, and all the people on earth would be blessed because of his family. God said, "I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go." Well, remember Jacob sleeping? So Jacob woke up and said, "Surely the Lord is in this place. What an awesome place this is." He named the place Bethel. Early the next morning, as a way to remember the place where God had shared his promise, Jacob took some oil and poured it out over the stone where he had slept. He renamed the place Bethel, and Jacob promised to follow God and to honor him. Now, this story is important because not only did God make a promise to Jacob just like he had made to Abraham and to Isaac, but also at Bethel, God showed that his plan was to continue the covenant promise through Jacob's family and eventually through a whole nation, which is the nation of Israel, leading to the birth of Jesus, the promised Savior. So God had a plan. This is all part of God's big story in calling Abraham and then Isaac and then Jacob and his special people Israel. God was preparing the way to send his son Jesus through the very same family. Now, when I hear about this story, one of the things I think about is how many family troubles they had. So I have a lot of brothers and sisters, and my brothers and sisters and I fight, but I have never had my brother want to kill me. So they had a lot of family troubles. Also, it must have been really hard that Jacob was Rebekah's favorite and Esau was Isaac's favorite. As you can imagine, knowing that your parents favored one or the other of your siblings more would be pretty hard. This is likely part of the reason Rebekah and Jacob tricked Isaac into blessing Jacob. But remember, God had already promised long ago when Rebekah was pregnant with Esau and Jacob, God had already said that Esau would serve Jacob. If Rebekah and Isaac had been patient and they had just waited on God's timing, then God would have maybe done something different. I find it really interesting that despite their sin, lying, stealing, cheating, Jacob tricking, God still used them in his plans. God kept his promises to Rebekah about Jacob, even though Rebekah and Isaac did not trust in God's timing. That's a wonderful thing about God. Remember our big picture question and the answer to it, which is that God always keeps his promises. God is faithful. So what I want you to take from this is that even when we mess up, like Jacob messed up, like Esau messed up, like Rebekah and like Isaac messed up, God is faithful. When we're not faithful, God is faithful. When we sin, God is perfect and he still keeps his perfect plan. And the most important thing to take from this is that the best promise that God ever made, his promise to send his son to save sinners like Rebekah, Jacob, you, me, and everyone, that one came true. Remember, we just celebrated that with Easter. God sent Jesus to die on the cross, to live a perfect life that none of us could live, to die in our place, and he didn't stay dead. He rose again. The Bible teaches us that none of us is righteous. None of us is perfect. We all mess up. We all make mistakes. We all sin. We all need a Savior, and Jesus is the Savior God promised. So, after you've heard this story today, I would like you to do the activity page that we sent out this week. You'll find the activity page for all 3 classes. So whatever Holy Cross Kids class you're in, you can do that activity sheet. And then I have a couple different craft options for you to try at home. So the first one is a little quicker to do, and it's a funny one. If you would like to make some hairy arms, you can look just like Esau. So this one is just out of paper. You could use cardboard, something to make an arm, a circle shape, or a cylinder shape. And then I used red ribbon because Esau was red and hairy, but you could use any yarn or thread, anything that you have around the house, and you can create your own hairy Esau arms. And then the other option, for those of you who maybe like to do more scientific projects, and this might be for some of our older Holy Cross kids. So we're going to make a Jacob's ladder. This is what the finished product will look like. And I've sent out instructions to your parents. So if you would like to do this, you can find this in your parents' email. And basically all you'll need is some foam, craft foam. You could use cardboard. You could even use chocolate squares, something that's a rectangle shape, and they need to be a little bit thicker. And then you're going to use ribbon and scissors, and that's really all you'll need. You'll be putting the ribbon on each of the squares, alternating between strips of 2, and then there'll be a strip of 1 in the middle. And you'll see all of this in the email. And once you finish attaching everything, you'll have Jacob's ladder, which folds and unfolds and reminds us of the dream that Jacob had, which was God's promise to be faithful to him too. So, take some time, do the activity sheet, talk with your parents about what it means that God is faithful and always keeps his promises and how he showed that in his faithfulness to Jacob. And another Holy Cross Kids teacher will be on next week to share the next story in Jacob's life. Have a great week.